Hey guys, we're ready for lesson 4. When we left last week, we had just met Archie, and we're going to take back up with that. We are in chapter 7. The old professor often talked to Senor Segura and to us. He was not certified to teach in Arizona, but that didn't stop him. Every Saturday morning, his house became a school. 4th graders, 12th graders, all were welcome. No tests, no grades, no attendance record, just the best school most of us had ever gone to. He covered everything from toothpaste to tapeworms, and somehow he made it all fit together. He called us the Loyal Order of the Stone Bone. He gave us homemade necklaces. The pendant was a small fossil bone strung on rawhide. Years before, he had told his first class, "Call me Archie." He never had to say it again. After dinner that day, Kevin and I walked over to Archie's. Though the official class convened on Saturday morning, kids were welcome any time. "My school," he said, "is everywhere and always in session." We found him, as usual, on the back porch, rocking and reading. The porch, bathed in the red gold light of sunset, faced the Maricopas. You know, Miss Gardner has trouble pronouncing things, so hopefully that's right. Archie's white hair seemed to give off a light of its own. The moment he saw us, he put down his book. "Students, welcome." "Archie," we said, then turned to greet the great cactus as visitors were expected to do. "Senor Segura." We saluted. We sat on rockers. The porch was full of them. "So, men," he said, "business or pleasure?" "Bafflement," I said. Ooh, bafflement's a good word. Look that up. Bafflement. "There's a new girl in school," he laughed. "Stargirl?" Kevin's eyes popped. "You know her?" "Know her," he said. He picked up his pipe and loaded it with cherry sweet tobacco. He always did this when settling in for a long lecture or conversation. Good question. He lit his pipe. "Let's say she's been on the porch here quite a few times." White smoke puffed like Apache signals from the corner of his mouth. "I was wondering when you would start asking questions," he chuckled to himself. "Bafflement. Good word. She is different, isn't she?" Kevin and I burst into laughter and nods. At that moment, I realized how much I had been craving Archie's confirmation. Kevin exclaimed, "Like another species." Archie cocked his head as if he had just caught the sound of a rare bird. The pipe stem anchored a wire grin. A sweet scent filled the air about our rocking chairs. He stared at Kevin. "On the contrary, she is one of us. Most decidedly, she is us more than we are us. She is, I think, who we really are or were." Wow, that's a lot of words right there to figure out. I so wish we could be together to talk about these. We may have to redo this book again. Archie talked that way sometimes in riddles. We didn't always know what he was saying, but our ears didn't much care. We just wanted to hear more. As the sun dipped below the mountains, it fired a final dart at Archie's flashing eyebrows. "She's homeschooled, you know. Her mother brought her to me. I guess she wanted a break from playing teacher. 1 day a week, 4 or 5, yes, 5 years now." Kevin pointed. "You created her?" Archie smiled and puffed. "No, that was done long before me. Some people are saying she's some kind of alien sent down here from Alpha Centuria or something," said Kevin. He chuckled, but not too convincingly. He half believed it. Archie's pipe had gone out. He relit it. "She's anything but. She's an earthling, if there ever was one." "So it's not just an act," said Kevin. "An act? No. If anybody's acting, it's us. She's as real as—" He looked around. He picked up the tiny wedge-like skull of Barney, a 60-million-year-old Paleocene rodent, and held it up, as real as Barney. I felt a little jolt of pride at having reached this conclusion myself. But the name, said Kevin, leaning forward. Is it real? The name, Archie shrugged. Every name is real. That's the nature of names. When she first showed up, she called herself Pocket Mouse, then Mud Pie, then, Hully Gully, I believe. Now, Stargirl. The word came out whispery. My throat was dry. Archie looked at me. Whatever strikes her fancy. Maybe that's how names ought to be, hey? Why be stuck with just one name your whole life? What about her parents, said Kevin. What about them? What do they think? Archie shrugged. I guess they agree. What do they do? Kevin said. Breathe, eat, clip their toenails? Kevin laughed. You know what I mean. What do they do? Work. Where do they do work? Mrs. Carraway, until a few months ago, was Stargirl's teacher. I understand she also makes costumes for movies. Ah, Kevin poked me. The crazy clothes. Her father, Charles, works. He smiled at us. Where else? Mechatronics, we said in chorus. I said it with wonder, for I had imagined something more exotic. Kevin said, So where is she from? A natural question in a city as young as Micah. Nearly everybody had been born somewhere else. Archie's eyebrows went up. Good question. He took a long pull on his pipe. Some would say Minnesota, but in her case, he let out the smoke, his face disappearing in a gray cloud. A sweet haze veiled the sunset, cherries roasting in the maricopas, he whispered. Rara avis. Archie, said Kevin, you're not making a lot of sense. Archie laughed. Do I ever? Kevin jumped up. I want to put her on hot seat. Dorco Borlaug here doesn't want to. Archie studied me through the smoke. I thought I saw approval, but when he spoke, he merely said, Work it out, men. We talked until dark. We said adios to Senor Seguro. On our way out, Archie said more to me than to Kevin. I thought, you'll know her more by your questions than by her answers. Keep looking at her long enough, and one day you might see someone you know. Wow, I love that. You know how Miss Gardner loves questions. So think about this, and I'm going to put this in your assignment. But I want you to be thinking about what would be some questions that you would ask Stargirl if you met her. Okay. Chapter 8. The change began around Thanksgiving. By December 1st, Stargirl Carraway had become the most popular person in school. How did that happen? Was it the cheerleading? The last football game of the season was her first as a cheerleader. The grandstand was packed. Students, parents, alumni. Never had so many people come to a football game to see a cheerleader. She did all the regular cheers and routines and more. In fact, she never stopped cheering. While the other girls were taking breaks, she went on jumping and yelling. She roamed areas that had always been ignored, the far ends of the grandstand, the spectators behind the goalposts, the snack bar parents found themselves with their own arm-pumping cheerleader. She ran straight across the 50-yard line and joined the other team's cheerleaders. We laughed as they stood there with their mouths open. She cheered in front of the players' bench and was shooed away by the coach. At halftime, she played her ukulele with the band. In the second half, she got acrobatic. She did cartwheels and backflips. At one point, the game was stopped, and 3 zebra-shirted officials ran toward one end zone. She had shinnied up a goalpost, tightrope walked out to the middle of the crossbar, and was now standing there with her arms raised in a touchdown sign. She was commanded down to a standing ovation and flashing cameras. As we filed out afterwards, no one mentioned how boring the game itself had been. No one cared that the Electrons had lost again. In his column next day, the sports editor of the Micah Times referred to her as the best athlete on the field. We couldn't wait for basketball season. Was it a Hillary Kimball backlash? Several days after the birthday song, I heard a shout down the hallway. Don't, I ran. A crowd was gathering at the top of a stairwell. They were all staring at something. I pushed my way through. Hillary Kimball was standing at the upper landing grinning. She was holding Cinnamon, the rat, dangling by its tails over the railing. Nothing but space between it and the first floor. Stargirl was on the step below looking up. The scene froze. The bell for the next class rang. Nobody moved. Stargirl said nothing, merely looked. The 8 toes of Cinnamon's front paws splayed apart. Its tiny, unblinking eyes were bulging, black as cloves. Again a voice rang out, "Don't, Hillary." Suddenly Hillary dropped it. Someone screamed, but the rat fell onto the floor at Hillary's feet. She sent Stargirl a final sneer and left. Was it Dory Dilson? Dory Dilson was a brown-haired ninth grader who wrote poems in a loose-leaf notebook half as big as herself, and whose name nobody knew until the day she sat down at Stargirl's table for lunch. Next day, the table was full. No longer did Stargirl eat lunch, or walk the hallways, or do anything else at school alone. Was it us? Did we change? Why didn't Hillary Kimball drop the rat to its death? Did she see something in our eyes? Whatever the reason, by the time we returned from Thanksgiving break, it was clear that the change had occurred. Suddenly Stargirl was not dangerous, and we rushed to embrace her. Calls of Stargirl flew down the hallways. We couldn't say her name often enough. It tickled us to mention her name to strangers and watch the expressions on their faces. Girls liked her, boys liked her, and most remarkably, the attention came from all kinds of kids, shy mice and princesses, jocks, and eggheads. We honored her by imitation. A chorus of ukuleles strummed in the lunchroom. Flowers appeared on classroom desks. One day it rained, and a dozen girls ran outside to dance. The pet shop at the Micah Mall ran out of rats. The best chance for us to express our admiration came in the first week of December. We were gathered in the auditorium for the annual oratorical contest, sponsored by the Arizona League of Women Voters. The event was open to any high school student who cared to show his or her stuff as a public speaker. The microphone was yours for 7 minutes. Talk about anything you like. The winner would move on to the district competition. Usually only 4 or 5 students entered the contest at MAHS. That year there were 13, including Stargirl. You didn't have to be a judge to see that she was far and away the best. She gave an animated speech, a performance really, titled "Elf Owl, Call Me by My First Name." Her gray-brown homesteader's dress was the color of her subject. I couldn't see her freckles from the audience, but I imagined them dancing on her nose as she flicked her head this way and that. When she finished, we stomped on the floor and whistled and shouted for more. We're going to stop there.